My name is Lisa Honig-Buxbaum, and I'm the CEO and founder of Soaringwords. Today, I'm excited to teach you about the latest scientific findings of character strengths so that you will have more resilience and courage and more tools to draw upon during this challenging time. Once you start living more of your life using more of your character strengths, you're going to feel different. Other people will probably notice, and they'll start changing their thoughts and actions too. So let's get started. Tonight, we're going to go on a journey together. First, I want to take a moment and tell you a little bit about myself. 21 years ago, my life changed significantly after 3 experiences with death and illness happened in my family in a 10-month period. My only sibling and younger brother, Gary, died suddenly of an asthma-induced heart attack. I got the phone call at 4 o'clock in the morning and had to tell my parents the terrible news a few hours later. 5 weeks after this, my father had his second bout of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, the worst kind and the worst stage. He was hospitalized for 4 weeks and had to undergo stem cell transplant therapy, or else he would die. The doctors told me and my mother to get his affairs in order because they said, "We're confident he will not survive." But survive he did. In fact, he lived cancer-free for 19 years. 10 months after Gary died, my oldest son, Jonathan, became catastrophically ill with rheumatic fever. He was twitching and drooling and heavily medicated. He was very ill for 4 months. The doctor told my husband and me that Jonathan would recover, but he didn't know how long it would take. He told us to rent a cottage and move to the ocean, get out of the hustle bustle of New York City. So we moved there, and each night I slept in my son's bed because he had terrible cramps and he would scream out in pain or have a little seizure. It was a terrible time in our lives. We were exhausted and scared. Every morning I would tiptoe along the beach and cry and pray and sing because as long as my son was awake, I had to be there for him as a constant caregiver. During these walks along the beach, I would sing and cry and pray. It was my only time to let my hair down and to just be there for myself. The rest of the time, I was his loving mother and caregiver. So during the height of his illness, on one of these early morning walks, as the sun was coming up, the name and the feeling of Soaring Words came to me from above. I had a calling, and I heard the name Soaring Words, and I knew why I was born. I saw my entire life flash before me in an instant, and I understood that I knew how to help ill children and families. Right there on the beach, I stood still and I took it in. I answered that calling, and I decided to devote the rest of my life to launching this thing, Soaring Words, a not-for-profit organization whose mission is to inspire ill children and families and adults to take active roles in self-healing. Today, I'm really happy to tell you that my son is fully recovered. In fact, just a few months ago, he and his wonderful wife, Evelyn, became parents to baby Charlotte. We call her Charlie in honor of my father's memory. Over the past 19 years, Soaring Words has inspired 500,000 children and families, people grappling with serious illness, to take active roles in healing, to overcome trauma and obstacles like the tumultuous times we're going through today. The one thing I discovered that when ill children and families and adults use their character strengths, they can thrive even in the midst of adversity. So today we're going to explore your character strengths, and you're going to learn how to tap into your innate ability to thrive, even in the midst of stress or challenging times. When you connect with your character strengths, whatever happens in your life, the positive times and the difficult times, you'll have a deep repository of strengths to harness. When most people think about contagion, we think about germs and people slathering themselves with Purell. However, did you know that thoughts and positive emotions are also contagious? Moving forward after today's session, you're going to recognize and appreciate and use your strengths more and more each day in your personal life and also in your professional life. You'll be able to help yourself, your family, your coworkers, your friends, and your neighbors experience more well-being in their lives, even as we practice social distancing. And especially in these times of social distancing, your character strengths are going to perform like superheroes, connecting you to the best parts of yourself and allowing you to appreciate the best parts of your family, your friends, and your coworkers. Today, we're going to create a strengths-based chain reaction that will make you feel energized. And whatever happens in your life, the positive times or the difficult times, you'll have a deep repository of character strengths upon which to draw once you discover your signature strengths and your character strengths. I started this workshop by taking a few moments to share my personal story with you, because like everything in life, the more honest you are with yourself, the more you put into today's workshop, the more you're going to get out of it. So in the privacy of filling out the questions in the Soaringwords Character Strengths Workbook, the more you put into it, you will really benefit and you're going to see changes in your life. This is a safe space in a fluid time when the only thing constant is change. So congratulate yourself on taking a few moments to give yourself the gift of spending a little time with someone really wonderful, you, and the constellation of your character strengths. We're going to have a lot of fun and we're going to do some different, immersive, and unusual activities together, but don't be fooled, because I know you're going to change, because I've seen this happen with more than 150,000 people who have done these workshops. People just like you and people not like you at all. Young children, hospitalized children, CEOs and executives at leading companies, and people living in homeless shelters. Everyone changes because everyone wants to be the best version of themselves. And as we go through this workshop, I know that you're going to be creating new neural pathways and your actions are going to shift in the days and weeks and months ahead. And the more open you are to being open, in 6 months from now, you're going to remember this workshop and you're going to forget what it felt like not to be in touch with your wonderful, fabulous, reliable, and wonderful strengths. So let's dive in. In the old days, we used to think that you needed to be a superhero or a world famous leader or a saint to change the world. But today we know that an ordinary person like Malala can do extraordinary things, like fighting for girls to be able to be educated and being the youngest person in history to win the Nobel Prize. Today we appreciate that everyone can make valuable contributions in their lives and to help make the world a better place. And boy, do we sure need that now. In his inaugural address as the president of the American Psychology Association in 1998, Dr. Martin Seligman challenged the profession to create a new science called positive psychology. He wanted to study what makes people flourish, what enhances well-being. Before positive psychology was launched as a formal discipline, traditional psychology focused on what was ailing people, all the diseases and afflictions that made people suffer. And the DSM, now in its 5th version, was the roadmap that cataloged all the things that are wrong with people. And it's a wonderful thing that medication and psychotherapy has allowed millions of people with mental illness and serious challenges to flourish. But there's a difference between just performing and surviving on base level and to surviving and flourishing with more positive emotions. And what Seligman was proposing was a dramatically different orientation to create the science of positive psychology to answer the question, what is it that makes us human? In 2014, Dr. Seligman and Dr. Chris Peterson launched one of the most significant contributions to the history of well-being, which is the Character Strengths and Values Classification, commonly known as the VIA Character Strengths Survey. This project was so extensive that it took 3 years of globe-spanning research in 75 countries as scientists researched what are the universal strengths gathered from examples in art and literature and music. The research analyzed these artifacts across time, geography, world religions, and multicultural relevance. What are character strengths? Character strengths are the things that make you the most you. They help you feel like the most energized, genuine, natural, confident, authentic version of yourself. When you feel confident and comfortable using your unique strengths, You feel a sense of wholeness and wellness. If you had to summarize who you are in just a few words that best describe you, you'll probably use the character strengths that make you the most you. Character strengths are universal. Everybody has them. You don't have to go to a special place or get a degree to learn how to use them. You just have to take that via survey, and it takes 15 or 20 minutes of your time. Today, you're going to learn what your unique character strengths are, how to strength spot in other people, and how to use your strengths more each day. And you're going to learn what your top 5 signature strengths are. Over the last 19 years, I've taught many hospitalized children to use their signature strengths to help them experience more positive emotions while going through medical challenges, and also working with their families and the healthcare professionals that are doing all the heavy lifting. I've also led a lot of character strengths workshops for children in different grades, and they really get it, and they're really excited about it. Now let's hear what Dr. Ryan Nemec, the Educational Director of the VIA Institute on Character, says as he talks about why character strengths are so important to expressing our individuality. So we know that everyone has character strengths. The question is, why are character strengths so important for expressing our individuality?
They're our essence. They're those positive parts of us. They're who we are. So each person has their own unique constellation of character strengths. You know, there are, what's the number? Like the number, there are something like 6 sextillion possible combinations of these 24 strengths, which is the number 6 with I think it's like 26 zeros after it. So not 6 billion or 6 trillion or 6 quadrillion, but 6 sextillion, I think is the word. I'm not a mathematician, but it just shows that there's an enormous amount of complexity in each person. And so the combinations of character strengths are virtually endless. I think there's 7.5 billion people on the planet. So we all have a unique constellation of strengths. And even if we have the same top 2, top 5 strengths, each of us is unique in how we express those strengths. So we're going to express the strengths differently if we're in a particular situation, if we're at work or at school or with somebody else. The way I express my strengths will be different than the way that you express your strengths, Lisa. And so, for example, if 2 people are both high in creativity, one person might be using their creativity by doing lots of artwork and paintings and drawings. They just love to express their inner self and to kind of unleash that, and they cope with stress that way and so on. And then the next person might not like art at all, but they're very, very high in creativity. And so maybe they're using creativity because they're very good at thinking about how to solve problems in lots of different ways. They're kind of like a mental creativity. Right. And, they're presented with a new challenge in life, and they can come up with 10 different ways of how they could deal with that challenge. So we all express the characteristics, whatever they are, in unique ways. That further describes that individuality that we have.
So let's explore the 24 character strengths together. They form 6 unique clusters. Let's look at the cluster of character strengths in the virtues of wisdom and knowledge. These character strengths here are love of learning, perspective, judgment, creativity, and curiosity. In the next virtues, these are the character strengths of humanity: love, kindness, social intelligence, which is defined as deeply understanding the people around you. For the character strengths of virtue, the virtue of justice rather, they are teamwork, leadership, and fairness. In the next cluster are the virtues of temperance, forgiveness, humility, being humble or modest, prudence, using care and good judgment, and self-regulation, using self-control. Another cluster is the virtue of transcendence, appreciation of beauty and excellence, having a sense of awe and wonder, gratitude, hope, which is optimism and thinking about the future, humor and spirituality. Another cluster is the virtue of courage. This embodies the character strengths of zest, bravery, honesty, and perseverance. So after this webinar, or if you want to take a moment now. I don't know if you've taken the VIA signature strengths, but if you go to viastrengths.org and when you go to the chat box, you can just click open the Soaring Strength workbook. There's a special link there, and it's all confidential. So you'll get a report that will tell you what your top strengths are. But right now, if you just look at this page on a piece of paper, or if you did download the Character Strengths workbook, just circle the character strengths, the 5 that you think are your signature strengths. Okay. Sometimes character strengths are easy to spot in others, but harder to recognize in ourselves. And a good way to think about strengths is something called strength spotting, where you recognize strengths in others. Let's look at these famous people and do some strength spotting together. When I say Steve Jobs, which character strengths do you think of that define this visionary? I think about creativity and perseverance, love of learning. When I think about Greta Thunberg, who just was named Time Magazine's 2019 Person of the Year as a 17-year-old activist who created a global movement, I think of the character strengths of bravery and perseverance. And when I think of Usain Bolt, the Olympic gold medalist from Jamaica, considered the fastest sprinter of all time, the greatest sprinter of all time, I think about zest and perseverance and humility. Character strengths are like muscles. The more you use them, the stronger they get. So on the next page, page 3 in your workbook activity, or again, just here with a pen and a piece of paper, you can put the video on pause. Go to page 3 in your workbook and think of one of your signature strengths and write about an example of how you used your signature strength in action in your personal life. And it would be extremely useful, perhaps, to think of how you used a specific signature strength to overcome a challenging time or a traumatic experience or a setback. So just jot down a few notes for that. And now we're going to turn to page 4 in your workbook, or just look at the prompt on the screen here. I want you to think about a different one of your signature strengths, something different from the last example you just picked, and think about how you use this strength in your professional life, or if you prefer, think about how you use this strength to overcome a challenging time, a difficult situation in the community, or someone larger than yourself or your family. Character strengths create a multiplier effect. Even though we're physically distanced from each other, if we think about our character strengths, they bring the best part of ourselves forward and also inspire others to harness the power of their own unique strengths. And that creates a chain reaction where everyone is inspired to use his or her unique strengths. Now turn to page 5 in your workbooks, and I want you to look at how we can make your signature strengths even stronger. Signature strengths create an energy that radiates from our core. And after reviewing your 5 signature strengths, what would it be like to live more of your life from your top strengths? So just close your eyes for a minute and listen to my voice. What would it feel like? I want you to think about your signature strengths and just take a moment to write down, breathe out, open your eyes, and just take a moment to write down, what would it feel like to live more of my life from my top 5 signature strengths? Sometimes, if someone's holding back and not using their strengths, it feels flimsy like a feather blowing around in the breeze. Other times, I'm sure you've experienced someone overusing his or her strengths, and it feels kind of like so forceful, like Darth Vader. Like most things in life, it's wise to strive for balance, the golden mean, using your strengths in the right proportion and gracefully being aware of your strengths. If you slip up, just be really self-compassionate and say, next time I could try harder, or not be so shy about using my strengths, speaking up. Or sometimes if you come on too strong with one of your strengths, you can just make sure that you remember that and try to curb yourself and your enthusiasm a little bit. Right now, if you start remembering to look at your strengths awareness, it's really helpful in these times of social distancing because you're never going to really feel alone if you remember to tap into your strengths. So I want to talk about something that everybody does every time I lead a character strengths workshop. And Dr. Ryan Nemec said the same thing. It's a universal tendency that the more than 8 million people who have taken the character strengths survey do when they get the results. So let's just hear what he has to say. I'm really curious and excited to learn what makes people tick. And the thing that I've noticed over all these years is whenever I'm leading a workshop on character strengths and people start looking at their reports, they always ask the following question. Lisa, what about these character strengths on the bottom, the ones that I'm really bad at? It's human nature. It's a negativity bias. I just want to make really clear that all of these are strengths and that it's really important to look at your signature strengths, the one at the top, because those are the ones that are the most relevant in your life. It's not a race. It's not a competition. You're not going to be looking at your character strengths and seeing how they stack up with your best friend or your next door neighbor. So it's really important not to look at the report and say, why are these character strengths so low?
Yeah, well, that's extremely common, and I think 95% of us would admit to looking toward the bottom when we get our results from 1 to 24, and the other 5% are just being dishonest. So we all kind of look toward, well, what's lower in me as well, because our brains are so wired toward what's wrong, or just toward what could be wrong or what could be weak. But what's interesting about this test is that what is lower, it's not a weakness, and it's not what's wrong about you. It's not a problem in you. That's the beauty of this test, is that there are only strengths. This is not a test that's measuring psychopathology or illness or problems, or it's just looking at what are your best qualities. You have all 24 of these. Every person has all 24 of these, is from what we can find in terms of the research from around the globe. So you have all 24. So just what's best in you? And those that come up lower, so from 19 to 24, your bottom 5, those are still strengths. They're just strengths that maybe you haven't paid as much attention to, haven't exercised as much, but they're still important as well. So that's why I'd like to encourage people to always have 2 simultaneous things in their mind when it comes to this work with character strengths. One is that all 24 of the strengths matter. They can matter for different purposes. Some are more important for your relationships, some are more important for your schoolwork, some are more important for managing your health, and so on. So all 24 are important. That's one. Then the other one to keep in mind, parallel, is that probably your signature strengths matter the most of the time. Those strengths that are highest in you, because that's that core to you. So if we can keep both of those in mind, we can go pretty far with this work, character strength.
Thank you, Ryan. The next few pages in your workbook are looking at overuse and underuse of the 24 strengths. And then on the following page, we've left a blank chart for you to fill in your strengths where you might have some that you underuse or overuse. For example, one of my signature strengths is humor. And sometimes when things get stressful, I forget to use it. So sometimes I underuse it and it never serves me well. But when I remember to use it, it diffuses the tension and everyone on this Soaringwords team can laugh, and then we can be much more productive and just kind of move forward. So my dear friend and colleague, Dr. Dan Tomasulo, who's also a graduate of the Masters of Applied Positive Psychology at the University of Pennsylvania, he teaches at Teachers College at Columbia University. He created an exercise called the Strengths Atom, and it helps you see how your strengths interact with each other as if they were an atom. So this is a drawing of my 5 signature strengths: spirituality, bravery, love, creativity. And as you can see on the chart, the humor is a little further out from the circle in the middle, which is me. So in our workbook on the next page, we've made a little handy dandy strength atom for you. So after you've taken the VIA, you can fill in where your signature strengths fit in here. And then there's a wonderful exercise where you write a gratitude letter to each of your signature strengths. You read it to them, and then you read it back to yourself as if the strength is reading it to you. So for example, I'm going to just do that with 1 or 2 of mine. For humor, I am your humor, an important part of what makes you so resilient and able to connect with people when they're going through difficult times. When you smile, it lights up a room, and you remind people that there are always micro moments of joy waiting to be savored, even in the midst of difficult times. I especially love it when you use me when you get overwhelmed or stressed out, because it diffuses the tension and you're able to return to balance. Over the past couple of years, I noticed when you remember to use humor with your family or staff, it instantly transforms stressful situations into opportunities for people to come together and not take ourselves so seriously. And then the humor, then you read it back to them. So that was the humor saying that to me. And I would say back to it, you are my humor and you're an important part of what makes me resilient. So you write something in as if you're writing it to your signature strength, and then you change the tense and the pronoun as if they're reading it back to you. So for example, with love, I wrote, I am your love. Love is who you are. It permeates everything you do. And when you tap into love, it just expands and multiplies, creating waves of positivity and connection. I love you, and the self-love enables you to love others in a genuine and authentic way. So that's love saying something to me, and then this is me saying it back to them. You are my love. Love is who I am. It permeates everything I do. And when I tap into love, it just expands and multiplies, creating waves of positivity and connection. I love myself, and the self-love enables me to love others in a genuine, authentic way. So I hope that is a little helpful. And just gonna move on. Character strengths connect us to our core self. And when you're connected to your authentic self, then your mind and your body and your thoughts and your feelings and actions are all integrated so that you can really flourish. And everybody has character strengths, as I said earlier, and character strengths also connect us to other people, which in turn creates a stronger sense of belonging and community. People really see you and recognize your strengths, and this deepens trust and strengthens relationships. Everybody has character strengths. You don't have to buy anything or use the latest electronic device. The best part about character strengths is when you remember to use them. Then you're always going to be the best version of yourself. And now we're going to do one of the most positive psychology interventions, which is called the best possible self. And it was created by Dr. Laura King at the University of Missouri. I want you to close your eyes for a moment and just listen to my voice, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in. Excellent. Keep your eyes closed just for a moment. I want you to think about your best life. Imagine that everything has gone as well as it possibly can. It could be you in 6 months, 1 year, or 5 years from now. Perhaps you've done really well in deepening some important relationships and friendships. Perhaps you've excelled in learning some new skill, learning a new language. Maybe you've taken the time to work out because you have more time on your hands now to try new healthy habits. Or maybe you were able to support a family member or loved one with grace and kindness. There's so many things for which you can feel proud. How do you want to grow, to look and feel? Who's with you? What makes you truly happy? What do you love? Get a good picture of yourself as your best possible self. And when you're ready, open your eyes. Later on, after the webinar, you can turn to page 10 in your workbook and describe this best possible self. You could spend a few moments or a little bit longer writing and journaling about the best possible self that you saw and felt and imagined. And then after you do that, you can think about what character strengths came up that your best possible self embodies. And then on the next page of your workbook, I've listed SMART goals, which are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. And it's important to think about SMART goals that will help you get from this image of your best possible self to moving forward towards that. Typically, I do an hour or 90-minute workshop on goal setting, so we're not going to be able to cover that today, but this is just giving you a taste of some of the many positive psychology tools that you can use at your disposal. This is a photo from summer 2019 in Japan, where I was leading a workshop with 29 students from all over the world on superhero messages and artwork. The thing that makes us really unique at Soaring Words is we always invite people to take a moment to pay it forward. The ill children, the families, or adults grappling with serious setbacks, take a moment and do something altruistic and kind to help an ill child in the hospital. These are photos of ill children in different countries making soaring superheroes. We have dozens and dozens of activities, soaring constellations, soaring fables, where they make something to give to another child in the hospital. So if you turn to page 12 in your workbook workbooks, or if you go to the soaringwords.org, soaringwords.org website, under activities, you'll see these instructions for soaring superheroes. There's just some simple guidelines, like it can't be violent or scary or use, too forceful words, because some of the children in the hospital are quite young. But you can think about superheroes from mythology and cartoons, or you can invent your own superhero. And then there's also a border on the website, a blank border. Think of this as your canvas and fill the whole canvas, naming your superhero and filling it in. And then you can make an inspirational message to the child using some of your character strengths. It's been really wonderful to spend this time with you, to talk about strengths. Everyone has them. And the more you use your character strengths, the more natural and second nature it will become to you. And you'll feel like the hero and heroine of your own life. And also in these times, these challenging times, if you use your character strengths and remember to tap into them, you'll always feel like you're in very good company, because you'll always be with the best parts of yourself. So I hope that you can just take a few moments and go into the chat bar and click on the link to the post-webinar survey and just fill in those few SurveyMonkey questions. And if you do the pre-webinar survey and the post-webinar survey, to thank you for that, we will be sending you a free copy of an award-winning film called The Science of Character Strengths by award-winning filmmaker and friend and mentor Tiffany Schlain. So I hope you'll take a few moments and fill out those surveys. And Soaring Words is the power to heal. So thank you, everybody. And I'm going to just look at the chat and see if anyone wanted to say anything. Thank you, Corinne. I'm glad you really enjoyed the session. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, Pamela. Does anyone else want to type anything into the chat bar? We're here for a few more minutes. I can answer questions that you have about anything that I presented or anything in the materials. Thank you. Sometimes people, It's very interesting. There's been a lot written about this also with the book Quiet, that sometimes people are more extroverted and high in zest and more of the obvious, passionate, outgoing, overt strengths. But there's a lot of importance and there's a lot of strength and wisdom in some of the quieter strengths like self-regulation, justice, kindness. And what a lot of our educators tell us, and what a lot of the introverts, more introverted people have told me over the years, is that it's very affirming to see that whatever their constellations of strengths are and their strengths at them, that they really feel that validated or seen. And that's something that's been very exciting to witness. And then also, when entire schools do this, a lot of times we go in and do weekly programs for 10 months in a school, or we'll do quarterly programs with a corporate group at their town hall meetings. As people are using their strengths more throughout the passage of time and strength spotting in each other's, teams in companies, families that are doing this, that take the VIA individually and talk about it as a family, they start building each other up and seeing each other using their strengths more and strength spotting more. And that's very exciting as well. So thank you everyone for taking the time to be on this webinar, and I'm sending you strength and love. Thank you.